to hear many words about why we are gathered here. What a beautiful place to live. What a wonderful town. What a spectacular way of life here. And there is a history which needs to be remembered, recalled, and healed. And that is why we are gathered in this place on this day, to be part of a celebration of a wonderful way of life in this town called Annapolis, and to recall so that that will never happen again. Welcome. If you need anything, just raise your hand and we will make sure that hospitality is cared for. Thank you, Madam Chair, and all of those who have made this day possible. I will now take my seat and enjoy with you. Remember, if you feel something that says move, move.
Thank you, Dr. Carletta Allen, for opening up this wonderful house of worship, this historical house of worship for the historical event. At this time, I'm going to invite the Speaker of the House, Adrian Jones, to come and give us words. Let's give a hand clap for Adrian Jones, the Speaker of the Maryland House of Delegates.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Annapolis, like you probably already had and going to be introduced, on behalf of the Maryland House of Delegates, in which I am presenting and welcoming you. It's an honor to have Annapolis designated as a site of memory by the UNESCO Slave Trade Route Project. It's an exciting day for me personally because I love history. Maryland has a rich history, and part of that history is deeply rooted in slavery. This is where Kunta Kinte first arrived, in the birthplace of Harriet Tubman. The foundation of this state and this country is built on the backs of enslaved people. African influence is stitched in the fabric of our culture, and our new port marker will help remind us of that. The designation as a site of memory is supported by Mayor Buckley and County Executive Pittman. This shows Maryland's commitment at every level of government to tell the truth about history, no matter how difficult it may be. There's been a growing movement to overlook the darkest part of American history because it's too uncomfortable. But there's an old saying, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. We can't learn from our history without learning our history, acknowledging that American history that is centered in slavery and understanding that painful past helps us progress into the future. It's remarkable that the ancestors of Black people, my ancestors, were first brought to Annapolis in chains. Now we're home to the largest Black caucus in the country, and I think that's pretty truly remarkable. We have come so far and still have much further to go. 158 years after Maryland abolished slavery, we're still dealing with the impacts of slavery. We have race-based economic gaps, health disparities, and high incarceration rates that all stem from slavery. We have to talk about it. We have to remember it. We have to do the work to change it. Our new port marker is a reminder of that. I want to thank County Executive Stuart Pittman, Mayor Gavin Buckley, Janice Hayes Williams, my colleagues in the both House and Senate that are here, the entire Port Marker Committee, and everyone involved in making today happen. I also want to thank UNESCO for installing a port marker in Annapolis and recognizing this city as a site of memory. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Jones. And a couple years ago, when the Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass statues were unveiled in the Maryland General Assembly, if you were there to hear Speaker Jones's words about what that meant to our state, just really lifted up our spirits in a very special way. I'm Vincent O. Leggett, Admiral of the Chesapeake Bay, and I am the Vice Chairman of the Port Marker Committee, meaning I'm Janice Hayes Williams' assistant. It might sound fancy, but that's what I am. I'm her special assistant. And at this time, we're going to hear from our county executive, Mr. Stuart Pittman.
So today, we're taking action. Today, we're marking some ground. And today, we're coming together as people of goodwill, as people who love freedom, as people who will not, the people who built this county, fed this county, all the people of this county, from the indigenous people to all who followed. I turned to my first director of constituent services, Janice Hayes Williams, and I shared that vision. Her eyes lit up, as they do when you talk history. And she met me where I was and expanded that vision out to People's Park, dedicated to the residents of the Old Fourth Ward, to Carr's Beach, to Crownsville Hospital, to Juneteenth as a county holiday, to the final burial of Smith Price. And now, on Maryland Emancipation Day, the day 158 years ago when 358 absentee ballots from Union soldiers approved a state constitution that freed tens of thousands of enslaved men, women, and children. On this day, we are joining some 40 other locations in this country to mark the ground where kidnapped African men and women stepped onto this land. It is a great honor today to have in our midst the founder of the Middle Passage Ceremonies and Port Markers Project of the United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization, Ann Chin. Is Ann Chin here? Can you please stand? Take a round of applause. Ann came to Annapolis a decade ago, asking that we act to become a site of memory, and we did not. She came back in 2019, and through Janice Hayes Williams, I met her. I also met the other Ann behind this effort, Ann Cobb. Is Ann Cobb here? Not today. Not today? Okay. Well, I just want to thank Ann Cobb for carrying this effort forward in Maryland. But we said yes. Mayor Buckley said yes. And today our whole community is saying yes. We say yes, yes, yes. Because Janice said yes. All right. We say yes because we want to heal. We say yes because we understand that what happened at City Dock in Annapolis, at London Town in Edgewater, and at ports up and down the Atlantic coast was not only a window into the worst of humanity, it is also a large part of the founding of our nation. We cannot understand our country if we do not understand our origins. The men and women who were forced off those ships in shackles did not give up. They worshiped. They created families. They started businesses. And they fought to defend this country against foreign aggressors. those who tell us that our children should not be taught the history of the slave trade or the history of the racism that our institutions were built around. I'll say that again. The racism that our institutions were built around are weakening our children and our future. When young people learn about the resilience and the faith and the strength shown by the people who survived the Middle Passage and became Americans, their faith and commitment to liberty and justice for all, the final words in our Pledge of Allegiance, only grows. We're not done telling the history of our county, and we're not done making our county the best place for all. But I'll tell you how we'll get there. You and you and you, and especially y'all up there, and everyone in this church, and everyone with a passage for peace, with a passion for peace and justice and equity and diversity and inclusion in our county will carry on. With the strength and the faith and the resilience shown by the heroic survivors of the Middle Passage that we commemorate today, we will vote, we will organize, and we will set an example for our children just as they set an example for theirs. That is why we're here today. That is why we act today. God bless this county, this country, and all of those who made this day possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman, our friend and our county leader. Mayor Buckley, Mayor Galvin Buckley. Another torchbearer.
It's so exciting to look out and see such an amazing turnout, and I want to give a shout out to St. Anne's and Annapolis Elementary up there. Let's have a big round of applause for the kids. Couple of schools that both of my kids have spent time in, so thank you. We love you teachers, thank you. But we especially love it that you're here because there are parts of this country where we're trying to rewrite this history. We're trying to gloss over it using terms like voluntary reassignment, things that really do a disservice to the history of this country and to disservice to the people who helped build this amazing democracy. So thanks for all attending. It was a foggy day out there and you all made it. So I'm honoured to be here. I want to start by acknowledging, of course, Janice Hayes Williams for her determination and persistence in helping discover the history of this town that tells the story So we also have to acknowledge Ann Chin and the Annapolis Port Market team who have worked tirelessly to get us to this moment, and to all the volunteers and partners who have worked hard to make this project a reality. I want to thank you all. Today, we're dedicating the Annapolis Port Marker to acknowledge the harrowing Middle Passage journey. This was nothing less than a form of inhumanity practiced on human beings who were enslaved in Africa and forcibly taken to the Caribbean and the United States for profit. For more than 2 centuries, many died along the way. Those who survived the journey suffered unspeakable inhumanities that would have taken America off the list of nations eligible to join the Geneva Convention. Today, we dedicate a port marker to designate Annapolis City Dock as a UNESCO Site of Memory. Annapolis joins more than 4 dozen US locations named as Middle Passage Sites of Memory. Today's event is about acknowledging history. Sometimes that takes a strong stomach. In Annapolis, We not only acknowledge our painful history, but through retelling the history, we can learn important lessons about ourselves. Some of the locations that were part of the Middle Passage slave trade don't have courageous champions like the ones you see here. And these sites, sadly, are shamefully are left unmarked, and we need to do something about that. To not know our history, especially the ugliest, most painful parts, is to deny dignity to the descendants and to withhold our humanity from their memory. Next year, City Dock is going to be redeveloped in order to make it a more resilient public space. The installation of this port marker at that site will help us be a more resilient community, one where we can acknowledge our painful past in order to build a brighter, more just, and more united future. I'm thankful to all those who began the International UNESCO project back in 2011, and all of those who began work on the Annapolis designation. It has brought us all here together on this first day on November 20, 2022. Let us continue that journey together. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Buckley. Now we're going to have Senator Sarah Alford, and we also acknowledge members of our delegation. Senator Alford.
Thank you so much. What an incredible day, and I know we are here to celebrate the port marker, but it's been acknowledged, but I want to emphasize today is Maryland Emancipation Day, which is incredibly important to the history of our state. This port marker is important to the history of us as a community, us as a state capital. And I'm going to reflect on the words of Apostle Coates from just a couple months back when we were standing on the city dock at that space. And he spoke about reconciliation and the fact that reconciliation for our past is not possible without confrontation of our past. It's not possible without recognition of our past. And it's not possible without acknowledging throughout our community the places and spaces where our past occurred to make sure that future generations never forget. And that is why this port marker as a physical remembrance and recognition of that past is so important. But we also have to recognize our own past, the spaces that we hold. I have the privilege of serving in Charles Carroll's Senate seat. I'm the first woman to hold it, but we can't forget that Charles Carroll, despite being a signer of the Declaration of Independence, also owned enslaved people. We have to confront our past, and we have to build from that past. And that is why I am so honored to serve you with Delegate Henson, who you'll hear in a minute, and Delegate Jones, who's also here. And we are doing everything we can in our own capacities, using our own power to make sure that our past, the good, the bad, the ugly, the powerful, continues to be recognized throughout our community. That is my commitment to you, and that is our commitment together being here today. This is a wonderful day. I cannot wait to see this port marker in its permanent place at the renewed city dock, which is not just going to be a dedication to our resilience as our community, but also a testament to our lifestyle as a community, the fact that we are open, the fact that we have spaces where we can all come together, and that this port marker will be a central figure in that is just an incredible testament to who we are as a community. Thank you to the committee, especially Janice Hayes-Williams, who this would not be possible without. But thank you all so much for being here. It is an important recognition of our past, an important testament to our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. You've really been a person that's been holding up the bloodstained banner, and we're going to continue to hold your arms up, because as long as your arms are up, we fight. And we're going to invite the speaker back, and Delegate Henson and Delegate Jones, and again, the senator. We have a proclamation from the Speaker's office, which is the General Assembly, because they all work together, and we'll come over and figure out how best to do that.
Why don't they put it back together?
Senator Alford.
Got to put it back together right now. Give us a second. I don't know where it's at. Okay. We all up here? Okay. This is from the Maryland General Assembly. Official citation, be it hereby known to all that sincerest congratulations are offered to the Annapolis Port Marker Committee in recognition of the 158th anniversary of Maryland Emancipation Day and the designation of the city of Annapolis as a site of memory. This marker will forever serve as a reminder of the resistance of those brought to this country and forced into slavery, and an acknowledgement of their freedom on this Emancipation Day. May there never again be a time of slavery in this country, but may we also never forget those who lost their freedom to slavery. And it's presented on this first day of November 2022 by all of us up here. Amen. Okay.
I accept this proclamation in honor of our illustrious chairman, Janice Hayes Williams. As I indicated, I'm her special assistant today, and thank the delegation, and we recognize all other elected officials here. We'll hear more about you later. Thank you all. Moving right along, I'd like to acknowledge the director of the Banneker Douglas Museum, Dr. Chanel Compton and Nell Johnson. Let's give her a hand. Also would like to acknowledge the director of the new Chesapeake Crossroads Heritage Area, Dr. Carol Benson. If you would like to say something or just wave, I'll allow either one. Yes, ma'am.
How's everyone doing? When Mr. Leggett said, if you'd like to say a few words, Janice looked at me and said, get up there. I am a proud assistant of Janice Hayes Williams. Okay? And I bring greetings on behalf of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture and the Banneker Douglas Museum, Maryland's official state museum on African American history and culture. Just recently, I visited Accra, Ghana last month, and my husband and I, we took a pilgrimage to the Door of No Return, which is at the Alameda Castle. It was a slave port for 300 plus years, and it was a site where millions of Africans were tortured and were primed to take the torturous journey of the transatlantic slave trade to the Americas, to South America, to Central America, and on our eastern shores. And it was there more than ever, and the many black people that were part of our tour group realized, fully embodied, that our ancestors survived for us to be here. And they didn't have to. So to the people of the diaspora, to all of us connected here today because of the resistance of the black hands that built this country, you had to be strong physically, spiritually, emotionally. They were not superheroes, but they were darn close. So it is important that we support individuals such as Janice Hayes Williams, such as our commissioners that are being here today, all of our students, educators, I would say all of you in the room I recognize as agents of change, like many of you that I know. Let us continue to uplift our elected officials, our allies, the men and women that keep Maryland on the up and up, and to preserve this history. This port marker is an instrument to honor the Black hands that built Annapolis. By preserving this history, not only are we honoring our ancestors, as symbolized in this Sankofa symbol, but we are activating, we are inspiring agents of change today to restore, to repair Black lives, Black communities that are still impacted by the centuries of enslavement, of anti-Black laws, of segregation that we are still impacted by today. So let's do something to restore, to repair. I've heard restoration, I've heard confrontation, but reparation, okay? Reparation. There are still communities in Annapolis, Black lives in Annapolis, that are still impacted by what happened in downtown Annapolis, at where that port marker was, that are still struggling from the history of enslavement, all right? So what are we gonna do? We're going to preserve this history, we're going to share this history, and we are going to embody the spirit of a resistance that our ancestors had for them to survive so we could do the work. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Janice. I will continue to be your proud assistant. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And now Dr. Carol Benson.
Thank you. That was so well said, Director Johnson. I appreciate you. It's a hard person to follow with my remarks, but what an honor it is for me to be here with you on this significant and highly moving day, Maryland Emancipation Day, dedicating this important marker for all of us, for our community. As Vince said, I'm the director of the Chesapeake Crossroads Heritage Area. The Annapolis City Dock is in the heart of the heritage area. And for all the reasons mentioned by my fellow speakers, this place is at the center of a crossroads of our community. The knowledge of the heritage of the Annapolis City Dock has always resonated with me, as I'm sure it has with all of you. This is one of the most historic, heritage-laden places in all of our city. We talk of stories, we imagine, we know the many heartrending stories that played out right there at the Annapolis City Dock as a result of this transatlantic trade. It is almost too much to bear, but for that reason, this crossroads of our heritage is a cherished place for all of us. And I'm thankful for the hard work by the many individuals working in collaboration and partnership, by Janice Hayes Williams, by our community leaders, by the Annapolis Port Marker Committee that is planned for this port marker that has been brought to the city and will soon be installed at City Dock. Congratulations to the team behind this important project that honors those who perished and those who survived, whose descendants sit among us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benson. And as Janice Hayes' special assistant, she's empowered me to speak as much as I would like to today. And at this time, I'm going to yield 2 minutes to the delegate from District 30, Shanika Henson.
I want to thank Janice for the vision to put this together. The space that we are all standing in is very significant. The position gives me the opportunity to speak to people who live in spaces and places that don't get to acknowledge history and culture the way that we are all doing right now. To simply say who you are, to say where you come from, and who you are as a people is seen as an act of resistance in some spaces. People have paid the price and the penalty for simply refusing to be cast aside and not acknowledged for their full complexity and diversity. The port marker is a reminder that African Americans were here, but that we were also brought from somewhere, and that this wasn't the beginning of our story. May it serve as a symbol to everyone who comes to the shores of Annapolis that a very proud people, as complex as those of us who exist now because we are their descendants, are the same people who survived the Middle Passage, who came here. When we think of memory, heritage, and resistance, all of those qualities are embodied and exhibited by those who are among us today. Thank you.
And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, drum rollers, the one and only, the indefatigable. Keep on clapping till she get here. Our very own Janice Hayes Williams, the 10th.
Oh, wow. Harambe!
Harambe!
I am a descendant of captured Africans, a descendant of my slave owner. It's only to be verified the blood in my veins. There is no critical race theory. I'm it. I want to give a special welcome to my alma mater, and I cried the tears because I had to go to Annapolis. Carl Snowden is here, a Gator. But guess what? My alma mater from high school is here. Annapolis High, where you at? Where you at? Yeah. Teach the children. The only way to bring our legacy forward. And Chen, you tried to surprise me, but Vince Molden let me know you were coming. Please stand to recognize the founder of Middle Passage Markers, Ann Chen. Thank you for being here. And before we get started, because somebody moved things around on my program, my day started. I got in the car and I had 2 different shoes on. My husband said, "What are you doing, baby?" What else can go wrong? I have to brag on this place. My pastor does not brag enough. I tell Stuart Pittman the same thing, brag more. This is Anne Arundel County. I am Anne Arundel County. Understand? And this day we celebrate. And I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to ask for Bishop Coates to come up here. What we're going to do is talk about the slave route from UNESCO. 3 pieces: resistance, liberty, and heritage. That is why we are here. And before we go, the whole port marker is about go back and get it. You know, you left your purse at somebody's house, go back and get it. This bird, Sakufa, is turned to make you understand that you must go back, retrieve your history, and tell it to the children. Because when we came to this site, Asbury United Methodist Church, smile, Reverend Allen. When you came to this place, you could not bring your drums. We could not bring our heritage. This church could be the first incorporated church in the state of Maryland. The Maryland State Archives cannot dispute what I've said. They have been working for months and they say, Miss Janice, we can't dispute what you say. 1803, AME in this place, the first black neighborhood in Annapolis, behind this place, 1799. So it's time to tell our stories. I promise you I will cut this back because you weren't supposed to be up here right now. So don't try to leave early, okay? The last school, there's only one school that takes Janice's tour every year, Dr. Bedell. It's St. Anne's Day School. Hello! Come on, get up, come on, get up, up. Every year. I don't know what that is, but every year. So now I'm gonna ask the participants, there's nowhere to move, is there? Okay, so you have to stay here. Thank you so much for being here. This is wonderful. We have been waiting for 10 years to do this thing. And last but not least, this quiet little voice that talked to Stuart and convinced him to do this. Stand up, Maya. Where are you? Maya Davis, formerly of the Maryland State Archives. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Here we go. It's showtime. Thank you.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Resistance. It is the story of slavery itself. From the first moment of attack and capture in their homeland, Africans sought to escape from bondage. On the track to the Atlantic coast, while bound together by ropes and other equipment, individuals tried to escape their captors in the trading forts, castles along the African coast. Men and women attempted to escape and fight back. Aboard anchored slave ships,
Before departure to the Americas, they tried to mutiny or flee. Resistance to slavery continued at every turn in the Americas. I was once told by a professor that if you were to drain out the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean, you could easily trace the path by the number of bones of those Africans who resisted by taking their own lives. Oh, there are many ways we resisted here in the States. Newly arrived Africans and our descendants fled from forced labor, harsh punishment, torture and abuse, and the threat of family separation. Many ways that we rebelled and resisted to slowing the work, to damaging the tools, to running away. And what I am so honored to share today, through what we knew was our religions that we brought with us. You see, our enslavers thought they were introducing us to God. God was with us the whole time. And so many days we had to do the work and sing a song that would soothe us, a song that would pass the time, a song that will keep us reminded that Pharaoh's army would be drowned in the Red Sea. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Martha, don't you moan. You see, because I got a home over there in Glory Land. It was the call and response songs that our ancestors so intelligently blended as a bit of our own religions and Christianity. We call it syncretism. And thus we escaped, even if we never left the ground, we escaped because of the songs. So when we sang the songs, old Master didn't know what we were talking about. You see, we were wading in the water because we knew God was going to trouble the water. In fact, there's a man at the river. He gives sight to the blind.
Give me liberty. I am Carlisa Finney, Education Liaison for the Annapolis Port Marker Committee. I welcome you. Freedom gained by emancipation or the deliverance from slavery did not guarantee liberty. The difference is that liberty is the state of being free from oppressive restrictions or control imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, political views, such as owning property, going into certain establishments, or having representation in the political process. Living in liberty allows each of us to fully enjoy our freedom, said prominent policy scientist and educator Murray Rutherford. And how these two terms developed and complement one another is important for everyone desiring to better understand what it means to be truly free. Black men had earned the right to vote with the ratification of the 15th Amendment in 1870. And in 1873, William Butler Sr. was elected the first black alderman in Annapolis and the first person of color to hold elected office anywhere in Maryland. In 1908, white Democratic legislators in the Maryland General Assembly circumvented the liberties of black people who, by passing an amendment to the city's charter, requiring voters to be property owners or to be descendants of someone who could vote prior to the ratification of the 15th Amendment. This Jim Crow-era law stripped Butler of his seat and prohibited nearly all black Annapolitans from voting between 1909 and 1915. If your grandfather couldn't vote, most likely because he was a slave, neither could you. Following Butler's footsteps to become alderman were Thomas A. Thompson, Butler's son, William Butler Jr., and Wiley H. Bates. Once Bates, who is best remembered for his fierce advocacy for children's education, retired from the city council, he helped raise money for the legal fees of 3 men who challenged the grandfather clause in a little-known Supreme Court case. With representation from a Baltimore attorney, Charles Jerome Bonaparte, founder of the FBI and Napoleon Bonaparte's grandnephew, the clause was struck down on June 21, 1915, declaring it unconstitutional. In a February 11, 2021 article of This Whole Story, Janice Hayes Williams, our local historian, said that this decision served as a catalyst for black political involvement in the city that has led to more than a century of unbroken black representation on the council. Liberty. It was the full use of his liberty that enabled one man to make a difference in the trajectory of history, a man who will never be forgotten. Let us bring him home, Honorable Wiley Henry Bates.
took that opportunity, came together in this very place, and learned together and learned those words. And then I realized I needed to spend a lot of time working and making money. Because Annapolis gave us that opportunity, as I said. So one of the things I did was I even called oysters down at the city dock. And then I became a waiter. I chopped wood, split wood, did all of that, sold it. I was a laborer. Everyone else in my family worked as well. But something else happened. I had an opportunity to go down to the Grand Hygeia Hotel in old Port Comfort, Virginia. Took that opportunity to wait on some tables of some great men who came through there. So one day I'm sitting there, I get called out, and I go out to wait on the table. And sitting at the table right in front of me was Ulysses Grant, the general. But then I thought to myself, I said, self, why are you standing behind the chair of a great man when you are a great man yourself? Because I'm free. And you know what? I left the Grand Hygeia Hotel and I never returned. Because when I got back to Annapolis, I opened a grocery store on Cathedral Street. I purchased a home on Cathedral and South Street. And then I got married to Maggie King over there on Carroll Street. And then in 1897, I ran for alderman, the city council in Annapolis. 1899, I decided not to run for reasons I'll talk about a little later on. I understand the mayor is here tonight. I'll get to that a little later. So what I decided to do, with the money I had from the grocery store and some of the other jobs I did, and what I call a work ethic, I decided to purchase plots of land from Caucasian, Jewish, and German immigrants who lived in the city of Annapolis to use and sell to colored folks who wanted to open businesses and buy homes. And that's exactly what I did. Now, to what I was talking about earlier when I was referring to the mayor. In 1908, the mayor of the city of Annapolis and the city of Annapolis council decided that the only way colored men could vote is if their grandfathers had the opportunity to vote or they owned land. Now, ain't that a doozy? Because out of the 800 colored men eligible to vote in the city of Annapolis, less than 100 own property. So, I did what any free man would do. I got angry, and then I went to work. So what I did was, I knew a man in Baltimore by the name of Bonaparte. Now, he was an advocate and a civil rights lawyer who worked for the colored people of Baltimore. So I got in touch with him and I brought him on down. Didn't have a whole lot of funds to handle paying him, but we raised the money collectively, retained him, and decided that we were going to sue the city of Annapolis for refusing the right to register to vote to these 3 black men, Howard, Anderson, and Brown. The case was called Myers v. Anderson. Now, the other piece you need to know about this case is this. We sued. We lost. We sued. We lost. We appealed. And then it was taken to the highest court in the land, U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. Now, I want you to imagine this and imagine it good and well. High-colored men and their white lawyer at the highest court in the land, dressed up to the nines. So we got up there. The case was heard, and I will never forget that day. It was June 1915, and the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the grandfather clause. Glory! Glory, hallelujah! Glory! Voting rights had returned to Annapolis, Chrisfield, all over Maryland. Every part of Maryland, voting rights had returned, and the colored people could vote. So I want y'all to remember this. Remember this well, especially you young people over here. Always exercise your right to vote. Every election, make sure you vote. The last thing, keep your eyes on the prize.
Audience thanks. Thank you. We'll round. Coast to coast. Wally Bates Middle School, Wally Bates High School.
I bought a gift from my Uncle Wally. Uncle Wally loves Cuban cigars.
If any of you know anything about horse racing, we're at the top of the turn and we'll be heading down the home stretch in a minute. Just hang on, hang on. Now for heritage.
Hi, family. Ashe, which has many meanings, but I'm inviting our ancestors, and it is a greeting. My name is Bernadette Pulley Pruitt, and I am elated to be united with you here today for this very important and special celebration in honor of our ancestors. Of the 12 million, our ancestors were part of the 10 million forced enslaved people who survived the horrific journey known as the Middle Passage. We know that one place where that journey ended was right here, where we still survive and where we are inclusive of the first families of Anne Arundel County. Both my paternal and maternal parents were enslaved in, ancestors rather, was enslaved in Anne Arundel County. My maternal family was enslaved by the Rideouts at Whitehall. That's a plantation in St. Margaret's, but some of us know it as Skidmore. My paternal ancestors were enslaved by the Galloways and Maxey family at Tulip Hill, which was a plantation near Galesville. And I would share a funny story with you. You might often have encountered this. Often you may have a conversation, or I have a conversation with some newcomers and give them a little bit of advice, just a little bit. And that's to never talk about anybody in Annapolis. Or really in the county, because the majority of us are all related by blood, by marriage, and or both. So, as we move forward and honor their legacy, we must tell our own stories and histories with the next generation and the world. Okay. We must be encouraged to keep the light of hope and faith in our hearts. This is what I don't get. So it is very important that we share that legacy and for our youth to know their roots. Last but not least, we must always proceed with patience and love. And if you really want to make the ancestors happy, do what you got to do and get out and vote. And never forget. Thank you.
We are all related. I grew up in New Jersey. My father grew up in South Carolina, where rice was king, and 85% of the population were slaves. My mother grew up in Maryland, in Calvert County, the Chesapeake Beach area, where likely her family were slaves, because my mother was born in 1900. My father was born in 1885. We are all related. And you probably don't know these numbers, but close to 7,000 Africans were destined to the port of Annapolis between the years 1696 and 1768. Now remember this, only 5,400 survived. Likely, if you went down to Bloody Point and drained the water, you would find many bones of our ancestors. Those poor souls who survived that ungodly slavery perpetrated by the national leaders, landowners, who exploited the strength and knowledge our ancestors brought with them from Africa. Today, we honor those ancestors who, when slavery was finally abolished, stood their ground and settled here in Anne Arundel County. They said, yes! They said yes. They're represented by several people here. When I say your name, please stand. Miss Faye Belt, representing South County communities. Four people representing North County, Pumphrey community. Miss Yolanda Dickerson, Mr. Moses Lattimore, Mr. Albert Ross, and Mr. Langford. Representing the Freetown community and the West County Matthewstown community is Mr. Anthony Tony Spencer. Representing the Annapolis Eastport community is Miss Jackie Douglas. Representing the Annapolis communities of St. Margaret's and Browns Woods is Mr. Ralph Thomas. And Mr. Thomas Skidmore. And representing the Southgate community is Mr. Mark Thomas. These elders continue the path our ancestors built into strong communities, which we're all called to strengthen even more and ensure our youth know this history can continue, even widening the path to prosperity and freedom. We call on you, young people. Thank you.
You've heard from the elders in this segment of the program, and young people are not the future, young people are here. And if you believe that, give them a hand as they come to the podium. Starting with Miss Alexis Robbins, a student at Chesapeake Science Point, is going to give you her version of heritage.
First off, I want to say thank you to all of our lovely speakers before this, and of course, Miss Janice in the back. Please wave your hand. Thank you. Not that nobody knows her, but I really truly wanted to say thank you for being able to speak here today. My name is Alexia Robbins. As you already heard, I go to Chesapeake Science Point. It's a small charter school in Hanover, Maryland. But I guess one of the things that stands out most about that school is that they really truly let us talk about where we came from. They let us talk about our history. And heritage is our history, right? It is part of us. It is something that was passed down, whether it be community, whether that be lessons. There are so many things that they have passed down. Something as simple as history. Being able to know where we came from. That is probably why it is the most important to me. I love history, truly. But how can I love history without knowing where I came from? How can I love history by being able to ignore myself? There are so many people out there right now, there's so many students, high school students, elementary students, middle school students who do not know because they're not being taught in schools. So, what have I learned? There is one thing, there are many lessons, like I've already said. There's one thing that I have learned: perseverance. This port marker would not be here without perseverance. Me being able to stand here right now would not be here without perseverance. My ancestors surviving their Middle Passage and living in a place called the United States of America would not happen without perseverance. So we can continue to keep moving, keep pushing forward, keep excelling. But what are we going to do to acknowledge? Well, we have our port marker. We are pursuing so many things to make sure that we're recognized. And when I think about what I have done, I was so small. I am not originally from Maryland. I moved a lot as a kid. And when it came down this journey of finding out who I am or who I am from, it asked one question. We were writing an essay in school for Black History Month about leaders in America. And I said, you know what? I'm going to choose Booker T. Washington. That is who I'm going to write about. And I looked at my father, standing back there with his phone. Probably where some of my love for history come from. And I said, Dad, how are we related to Booker T. Washington? And he said, well, let's find out. And I wrote my essay, and we keep pushing to find out how we're related. Not even a month ago, we went down to the house in Pennsylvania where my great-great-great-grandfather built after getting a job working in a post office. He bought land, he built a house for his children and his children's children. Now I get to say I've been there, but it's about where I came from. I came from him, and I came from where he came from. I mean, it's implied, right? But knowing that, I took a genealogy course. That genealogy course led me to meeting Miss Janice. It's true. And I'm continuing to learn. We are so privileged to be able to have people who are willing to talk about the history of today and of yesterday, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. So, how can I continue to learn? I'm standing here. I will continue learning from people who know their history, whether it be oral or documented. I'll continue asking questions about Frederick Douglass, about Mr. Bates. The biggest thing that we can do is use our resources to learn. That is the biggest thing we could possibly do as youth. So those sitting up there and those sitting over there from Annapolis High. Annapolis High? Yes. Sorry, again, small school. Keep learning. Read your books, read articles. Even if you cannot read, listen. when you're sitting at those, and when you're sitting at gatherings or family gatherings, listen. They love to slip stuff out. You'll find things out you never thought you know until you just listen to a single conversation and ask questions. There are no dumb questions. There are only smart questions. So, that is my take on heritage. It is the history of where I came from. It is the things that were passed down. It is my willingness, my ability to go forward and continue learning about myself and about those around us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Akil Leggy Jr. and I'm in the 11th grade at Annapolis Senior High School. And before I get started, you guys all know, I was grown up in a church, a little church on Muddy Creek Road called Hope United Methodist Church. And I was taught when you come to the podium, you always give honor to God because through Him is that we are all here today. And so I just do want to give honor to God is that we are all able to be here today and talk about UNESCO and Annapolis being made a port marker. Resistance, liberty, and heritage. Today I have the opportunity to talk with you all about the importance and significance of heritage. Heritage is tangible and intangible things and assets from a group in society that is inherited from past generations. When people hear the word heritage, they automatically think of food, dances, and clothing. When I think about heritage, I think of history. I think about the good, the bad, the cute and ugly history of our history as African American people and as us as a society, which is why it's important that we learn about all aspects of our history as a people. It's seen that African American histories and studies is not taught in schools, and the 28 days in February isn't enough for us to learn about our history. This is why it's important that we have clubs like our. But in that process, it's important to remember that we weren't always slaves. We were taken from Africa. We were kings and queens, and it's important that we do remember that. And so while we do have to go back to the places of trauma, which is the Annapolis City Dock, it's important that we do acknowledge that we were there and now we're here. And that's just something so powerful that when we had the Slavery Remembrance Day about a couple weeks ago, and we threw rose petals and we had all these distinguished speakers talk about the importance of that morning and that day of just looking out to the water. And you know, when you hear people talk about if you drain the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean, you can see the trail of bones through the door of no return to the east coast of the United States. And as we are celebrating our ancestors, it's important that we do acknowledge the Sankofa bird of Ghana. This bird is so significant that it's able to look back at its past, despite what it sees, and still moves forward. And I just think that as we're all here today, we are looking at our past and we are still moving forward. And it's through events like this that we are able to honor our ancestors. So I just think we all need to stand and give a hand clap that we are here today and able to acknowledge the port marker ceremony and Janice Hayes and the team that was able to have this event together, and all of the Annapolis High School and elementary schools up top, that we're able to be here today and celebrate this amazing day. So, yeah.
You can be seated. This is why I hang with young people, because they can come by the nursing home and pick me up, carry me to the golf course, let me sit on the bench and tell stories. Then when y'all come by the nursing home and get me and carry me to the golf course and listen, so I can tell stories with the boys. Yeah. See, y'all need some young people in your life today. In your life today. Not tomorrow, not next week. So you'll have somebody to come by the nursing home, pick you up, carry you shopping, carry you to the golf course, wherever you want to go, but you have to pour into them today. It's all about priorities. We have money to do everything else we want to do. It's about priority and purpose. Thank the young people again. Go to your seats. Thank you. And at this point, we're shifting gears according to Janet Hayes. We're coming down the back stretch. And now it's Scotty Preston. The one and only, the world traveler, the heavyweight champion of the world. Our sister, Scotty, we love her.
Thank you, Vince. I love to be loved. Yes. So, Harambe. I am a descendant. Proud of it. Extremely happy to be here with you today. And my cousin Ann, look at this. Look what we did. Yes, man. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, committee. Thank you, all of those. Like everybody else says, I will try to keep this as brief as possible. I don't want to repeat the obvious. But I have the extreme pleasure to talk about this textile that's hanging on the this precious wall behind us. It was made by Dominic Marfo, who is in Ghana. And I don't know, are we going to be able to meet him? Jan, is that clear? Oh. There was a video that was done by Christian Smooth, so I want to thank Christian for doing that, of Dominic, a little bit of his weaving, the kente cloth, talking about the symbols and what they mean that are on there. The design is mine, but because it's not a classic kente cloth, if you will, or kente design, but the symbols that go around it do include accept God, unity, which is an interesting one because it is a symbol of two alligators sharing a stomach. And they actually fight over it, but they have to share that stomach to get along anyway. So it's kind of this, like, get over it, folks. We're in it together, so we may as well work together. So unity, freedom, and except God. Yes. And of course, in the middle, Sankofa, the Sankofa bird, and that's what I'm here to talk about, going back and getting it. Sorry, hold on, give me a second. I don't know, this is not something that... Everybody, I am so happy that you move aside so that I can come here and talk to you. There's so many folks on the other side what want to give you a message. Oh, where are my manners? My name is Lindy. Yes, Scott is here somewhere. She's standing there with her arms crossed and she's not happy. But this message has to come. Your ancestors are here. That's what you need to know. That's what they keep telling me. I got to get through. I need to tell everybody that we're here, they say. There's a jubilee. They want you to know they're standing among us. They want you to know that they're embracing us. They want you to know that they are happy for the recognition, the reconciliation, the small steps towards a reparation. And that it's underway, you know. And that they're not going to forget you. So every ancestor, what you have, they're standing here next to you in this blessed holy robe to let you know we're here. Don't stop. Keep going back to get it. Doggone it, doggone it. Lindy is a handful, and she makes it known that when a message has to be said for me to get out of the way, and most times she manages well enough. And so my job here is done except to except to say that I'm so sorry that Dominic Marfo's video isn't here, because he's such a wonderful, wonderful spirit. And we spent so many hours on WhatsApp and the back and forth and the back and forth. And he was so excited, and he wanted to be here for it. And I mean, the man is just engaged. He considers himself an honorary member, by the way, Jan. So he's a committee member, whether you knew it or not. And I also want to thank, since I am the ceremonial liaison, the Ni Dembaya drum and ensemble. So I liaison Dr. Yu, who's the head of that organization. There are also dancers, part of this ensemble. They were at the City Dock for the Kunta Kinte Festival, and it was a no-brainer for me. I mean, as soon as you guys were done, it's like, yeah, can you do this too? Anyway, and then of course the ceremonial part that is soon to come, which is the libation altar. So, yep, those were my tasks. Thank you so much, everybody.
And now representing both sides of the Atlanta, Tola, Ambassador Tola.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Adetola Ajayi. I work for the mayor's office. My position is African American Community Service Specialist, and I am a descendant of a Nigerian. My father from Nigeria, born in Nigeria. My mother is African American, born in Anne Arundel County, raised in Smyrna Park, Packtown, and also in Marbury Hill section of Broadneck Peninsula. Our family has been here since the 1830s, owning land, and that was something that always inspired me to dig into my history on both sides of my family. My father is a very proud Nigerian of the Yoruba nation, of the Ijebu Kingdom, and that's something that, you know, when Janice wanted me to speak on what was slavery like in Africa, it made me do a lot of questioning him, and, you know, it's a tough thing to talk about, but at the same time, this is a representation of how we can have that conversation and how we can go back as Sankofa and claim our connection to Africa, because they didn't take slaves. They took kings, queens, doctors, architects. Also, they took warriors who resisted. My family, particularly in Nigeria, did resist the British, did fight to keep their land and keep their culture. You know, I'm very proud of my Pack family in Anne Arundel County, because they resisted the economic warfare against black people. They owned land. They made sure that they were educated. My family is proud of Asbury Broadneck, Asbury Town Neck, and I would like to definitely acknowledge one of my oldest ancestors in Anne Arundel County, Jason Asbury Pack. And again, like I said, they owned land in Smyrna Park in the 1830s, and that was their liberty. And the heritage part, I want to thank my grandmother for always telling me these stories, these oral traditions, and then years later being able to verify a lot of them in the state archives. And so that's why I know that Maryland has a very intricate part of this history that we need to you know, go back and recover. and work towards reparations and restorative justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Tola. And now we're going to hear from Apostle Craig Coates.
Something happens when lives are interrupted, when blood is shed on land. If we go back to our Bibles, it tells us, even in the very beginning, the first murder, his blood cried out to God, and God avenged his blood upon his brother. Something happened on these shores when lives were taken from our homeland and brought here to this place we call the land of the free, home of the brave. And when things like this happen, it disrupts the flow of the land as well. And so today, there is a very spiritual piece to all of this. We're going to ask if all members of clergy would stand at this time. Members of the clergy, thank you. Please remain standing. Please remain standing, because we have today representatives of congregations that were here when the first Africans arrived as slaves. Those congregations of St. Anne's, St. Mary's, and Calvary United Methodist Church. And today, we have to come and stand with us today representatives from both congregations, St. Anne's, Reverend Zechariah, and also from Calvary, Reverend Mater. If you would please come. We are going to now redeem the land. They were here when we arrived, and now together we seek reconciliation, restoration. Once I repeat a statement, if you would just say, "Have mercy on us." Let us pray. God the Father, you freed your people from slavery in Egypt, yet the legacy of slavery deforms our lives today.
Have mercy on us.
God the Son, you prayed that all would be united in love and service, yet the divisions among us rend your body.
Have mercy on us.
God the Holy Spirit, you inspire us to live peaceably with all, yet the stain of genocide and internment mars our striving for justice.
Have mercy on us.
And now representatives of the congregations that were here to receive us.
In that day, when we were a light in this darkened city, we were present when men, women, and children of color were brought to our shores and sold, beaten, and killed. Today we stand in the light of truth as we receive the Apostle Coates as a representative of your people who were bound but are now free.
Therefore, as ministers of reconciliation, together we confront hate, racism, and the sins of the past. Together we work to heal the wounds of slavery in our city. May this marker be a tool to educate and make right the wrongs of our past history. Amen.
Amen.
Thank
you. And now we'll prepare for the libation ceremony. We'll bring the libation table forward. It will be a forward-facing celebration, so if those on the dais, if you're comfortable where you are, if you'd like to reposition yourself, this is the opportunity. As we're getting ready to say a collective prayer and libation, and then we'll be unveiling the replicas of the port marker. What I would say as we prepare the libation table, I represent the diaspora. I got one of those $50 DNA tests where I took the Q-tip, swabbed my cheek, put it in the envelope, put a stamp on it, and mailed it away. When it came back, it said, Mr. Leggett, you're part Irish, you're part Brazilian, you're part Native American, and a little bit of Negro. And I said, hallelujah. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Because I knew that I was mixed up a little bit. I called myself a country boy from East Baltimore, and if I don't open my mouth, you really can't tell where I'm from. Somebody say amen. Amen. I've been accused of being a Patel, and those are the money people from India. And I really kept my mouth shut. Yes, I'm a Patel. Move to the front, Mr. Leggett. I'm going to invite Scotty Preston, and I'm going to invite my grandson, Akil O-Leggett Jr., to assist me in this ceremonial tribute. For me, this is a very solemn part of why we gather. And I'm just going to tell one story and then give a tribute to our ancestors. Yes. There was a British slave trader named John Newton, and he had a carload or cargo of over 400 enslaved people in the hull of his ship. As he was crossing the Atlantic Ocean, heading to the Americas, he got caught in a violent storm. And while he was on deck trying to find his way, he heard moans in the hold of the ship. And he could not get the sounds of those moans out of his mind or out of his heart. And as they continued to hum and moan as the ship tossed on the sea, those 5 platonic notes just kept ringing in his ear. As the slave ship rocked to and fro, the enslaved people were layered in a spoon position in the hold of this slave ship. 400 to 600 enslaved persons, and all of their humanity on the floor. All of their humanity on their bodies. The ship rocked, and the ship rolled. And on that day, this Captain John Newton penned the words to that melody. And it said, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was
walking stick was carved by an African. It was given to us. Because so often when people talk about blue space and brown space and green space, if you were from the interior of Africa, you had to walk many times 20 miles a day to get to the slave ship. And so as my elders talk about the bone of tears in the bottom of the oceans, because more enslaved people went to South America than North America. And in this slave triangle, from the African coast to the Caribbean basin to Brazil and South America. But now hear this, if you don't hear anything else. And then they turn due north of this Chesapeake Bay, our noble Chesapeake Bay. Please pour. And what I say is this bay is your bay, and this bay is our bay. And what Frederick Douglass said, that this bay is a water of hope and a water of despair. But the good news, in spite of it all, we rise. That we build on this legacy. And we thank you all for all of our dignitaries and young people and just everybody that had a hand. My friend Janice Hayes. Not just close out with some words of thanks? Yes.
I got both shoes on. Thank you. Our book marker is not ready yet. It will be here soon. The county exec and the mayor will send you another invitation for part 3 of the